Chesky present, Bob Lilac,
Here.
Mindy Reynolds, Steve Lawrence,
Here.
Jim Beers. All right. We have quorum and I'll call the meeting to order. Item number 2, will you please rise and join me as we pledge allegiance to our country and state? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. Is anyone signed up for public comments? No one at all. Okay. Item 4, consider an act of request for adjustments. Mike, is there any adjustments? Oh, good. Consent agenda. Does any director request any item be removed from the consent agenda?
I only have 2 questions. On page 5, the sanitary sewer repair is way under budget, which is good. But the question I have, did we budget incorrectly, or are we deferring maintenance, or we're just really, really lucky?
We budgeted some stuff that probably won't get done this budget year. It'll probably be pushed.
Okay, so it's deferred. Yeah.
It's not quite finished.
Okay. And then the other questions, just out of curiosity, there's a maintenance tax on page 11. I have no idea what a maintenance tax is, so it's just a curious question. So, Maureen, or is that your?
Maintenance tax?
Yeah,
That is your tax rate. So you don't have any outstanding debt. So all your tax rate is what is technically called a maintenance tax.
well, who's it paid to, or paid, and why is it called a maintenance tax?
It's to maintain your infrastructure. It's a tax, the revenue of which is used to maintain your infrastructure and pay for operation expenses.
So who gets that money?
District.
The operating fund.
To pay for the line items you just asked about on the previous pages.
Okay,
There's 2 components to your tax,
Yeah.
debt service and M&O. That's the
Okay.
M&O. You don't
Okay.
have any debt service.
okay. And then one other question. In there, it shows the interest rates for Chase and Veritex CDs. We don't have any money on those. Is that just for comparison purposes?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
I think that's okay. Good. Do I have a motion and second to accept the consent agenda?
I so move.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving to regular agenda, item 10, receive the regular monthly SJRA report.
Our report's in your packet, beginning on page 17. Nothing more to add, nothing out of the ordinary. We got through the hurricane pretty good. We have 57 sites in the Woodlands, 56 of those lost power. No real damage. We had a canopy, maybe $20,000, $30,000 that folded up, and then we had a panel that blew out. So on a split station, maybe $10,000 worth. So small damage. Power is entirely back on as of now. Last 3 sites came on yesterday about 10 a.m. So that's all I have unless you have any questions.
I got one, on page 19, talking about 16-inch PVC water line. Project estimated completion was yesterday. Did that get delayed because of the hurricane?
Yes, sir. We're about a week behind. We had that contractor demobilized from that side, move us to help with some of the tree cleanup. And so he's back on site today, should be done next week.
Great.
We've had no financials now for a couple of months. When will we start getting those?
As soon as I can get them, you can get them. So last month, I think we had April's. We provided April's a couple months
Yes.
behind. At this point, the accounting software, they can't get the reporting correct. So once the reports are correct, they'll get it to us, then we'll send it to Eric and Shelley to get to you. So we'll have a few months we owe y'all by the time we get them. I'm hopeful that we'll have them in August to catch us up for everything that we've seen before.
So I'm kind of curious, this new accounting system doesn't seem to be working properly. Is there some advantage to it, or we're no longer getting support for the old accounting system?
The old accounting software, Great Plains, was out of date, is over 10 years old, no more service packs, nothing else that could be done, so we had to switch to something else. In this case, it's a Microsoft product, and so they did a year's worth of implementation, all the behind the scenes getting ready for it. The go live was May 1st. So you're only maybe 2 months in of actually seeing if all the connections were made correctly. So people are getting paid, invoices are getting cut. It's just on the back end. The actual reporting itself is not lining up with what it should be.
So no estimate of when that will be completed.
When I asked for the financials for this month, I was told it's going to be next month. But I'm also pretty sure that's what I was told.
Well,
Tell you what I know.
okay.
I'm flying in the darkest.
Mhm.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Item number 11, consider an act on the draft 2025 SJRA Woodlands Division budget. Any questions, comments about that you'd like to present?
Again, I do, on the page 55 and the May handout, the budget was listed. We have 11% increase in salaries. Is that because of growth, or just inflation, salary inflation?
So I'm going through, I have an electronic version I'm trying to go to. On the May packet, I don't know if you have it or not, but if you look at later on page 49, it goes through all the different changes with staffing. The biggest increase is, you'll notice the first one on page 55, that first number, I think it's a 2% increase in salaries.
Mhm.
That's directly over to the Woodlands divisions. That's people that report to me. That 2% is actually due to merit, promotions, equalization, stuff of that degree. The second one is the allocation. So that's everybody overhead that charges to us. With the projects that are coming up, potentially some of the bigger ones that we've seen is basically technical services has added a person. And so it's not actually truly a new FTE, it's just a reallocation to the division. And so page 49 of the May packet does break down where all the changes in FTEs are going. So part of it is actual boxes changing. The other part of that is the up to 6% promotion, merit, and market adjustment increase.
Group insurance has gone up 40% by almost $500,000. And that's health insurance, or what, life?
That's health, life, that's everything except for legal insurance, I believe. They may have wrapped it all together. There's all those benefits.
And the lobbyist budget is up, is more than double. What does he do, or what are we doing with a lobbyist?
So the lobbyist, the reason the percentage is so high is the current fiscal year, it was only budgeted from September to January. So we only had 3 months. Trustees and audit committee recommended that it actually go until September 1st, basically at 25. And so when we added in those funds, you're going to see a higher percentage because it's 3 months compared to 12 months. So that's why you see the percentage highest.
So that's virtually a full-time position.
It's a consultant, not full-time, but pretty well full-time. I want to say it's about $8,000 a month at this point for the lobbyist time. Should
What
be
does
about.
he do? What does a lobbyist do for us?
So for us, the two bigger things that he's done for us is one, getting money for Bear Branch Dam. The repairs that are needed over there, I think it was about 3.4, 3.6 million they've received. The second part is they did get funds for Lift Station 24, which is in your project plan. It's in the floodplain, so they got just under $2 million headed our way to rehab that lift station and get it out of the floodplain.
Do we actually have the money on hand for the Bear Branch project?
The actual reservoir itself.
The 3.6 million.
Well, we don't get it in hand. It's kept in escrow, it goes to the Army Corps, and so they take their cut and we do everything through them. And then as work is done, they reimburse us. So we float it for a month or two, then they pay us back.
Okay, so that work is in progress on that.
That work is in.
Okay, then the last one is engineering, a big increase there, and I assume that's related to the wastewater treatment plant.
So the engineering has two things that are drive it a little bit more than others. One is the sixth and final accounting audit is what I'm calling it at this point in time. Is basically going to be right around 8-9 years since we've actually started the sixth and final accounting. And so this will be a overall true up, just looking at the parcels and looking at the subsections, making sure capacity is where it needs to be. One for the benefit of the MUDs, the other for the benefit of the river authority, make sure we're all looking at the right numbers. That is, I want to say about $150,000. There's also some changes to Senate Bill 3 that came out in November of last year. Senate Bill 3 is what the legislature made after the winter storm a couple years ago. Says everybody has to have all these generators and all this other requirements. The TCEQ made some changes in November that kind of conflict with what we have. So we need to redo our plan and see if we need some O&M manuals. I think that's about $50K worth.
Yeah, two more items. System security monitoring. The budget is doubled on that. From 15,000 to 30,000.
You could point me, are we still on page 55?
Yeah, 56. It's under maintenance, repairs and parts.
So, and that was which one again?
Security system monitoring.
Because that's gonna be cybersecurity through the IT portal or IT department. And they are looking at more firewalls and more top secret stuff to get done. They told me cybersecurity.
And the last item is a clarifier, whopping almost 300%. I assume that's maintenance and repair for that.
There is some of the weirs and some of the metal components that we can't hold off for too much longer. We can't push down for 5-10 years. We've done enough Band-Aids. They're gonna be falling down. We're gonna go through there and do some repairs on the metal components of one of the clarifiers.
Okay. That's all I have.
Should we put any contingency in for maybe any proposals that might come out of Austin? For utilities, for standbys for hurricanes and storms? I know it's hard to do, but you know they're gonna come up with something.
We already have requirements for water plants. You already have them for wastewater treatment. Lift station, you get permanent or some permanent, some temporary.
And y'all with us started that after Hurricane Ike.
Yeah.
And so before we had 2 or 3 generators on the lift stations. Now I think we have 15 plus 6 portable.
Yeah,
So
that's over and above. I mean, that's
Yeah.
probably you want to talk about backup power in the industry. That's probably the weakest link of your lift stations, and generally operators here, it goes above and beyond what you see in the typical mud industry. Most of the time, the operators have a number of portables and they move them around to the different lift stations that they operate. So if you're trying to speculate, which is pure speculation.
Yes, I know, speculation.
Maybe there's a requirement to harden the lift stations and have permanent backup power at lift stations, and maybe they beef up the requirements for, water, wastewater. But I think we're further along than what the general industry standard is. Eric, you have it.
Absolutely, yeah. You're complying currently. There's nothing more you could do on the water plant side. Sewer plants, you don't have to, but you're already doing it. And then lift stations, like you said. And the reason why lift stations typically have a portable that's run around each one is once the tank fills up, you just need to pump it down. So you plug it in, let it pump down, and then you can move off to another generator. And it'll take, in some cases, it could take a day or so to fill up. Just depends on what the parameters of that lift station are. So, and then beyond that, you have the backup that once the tank fills up, you actually could back up sewage into the gravity line coming into it. So you even have that timing too to play with. So it's not really, I think you're well prepared.
What about your offices? Did they have power, standby power?
they do. So wastewater plant 2 has on-site power for the wastewater plants tied in there. Plant 1, the actual physical plant itself is Entergy, and they have generators there. The office and the maintenance shop is CenterPoint, so it took longer. Actually, that's one of the ones that came online yesterday. But there's generators for everything that's critical.
So you have a command center. I mean, everything is, you do have power there that you can keep running.
We do. The only thing is the Woodlands Division does not have a Cat 3 EOC, Emergency Operations Center. So The building is basically a Cat 2. So if hurricane comes through, go where we can. We got a basement though.
Yeah, and WWA doesn't have anything, so.
I was gonna say, is that something we need to look into?
Field office didn't get power until, well, we got power here, in the morning Wednesday. And then the field office, I don't think got power until, was it Friday? Yeah, Friday. So, I mean, we put in place a protocol, here where, employees, you know, went home and we were able to communicate and do what we needed to do remotely. That was the only option. Several were here until it got pretty ugly, Monday morning. And then once the power went out, folks went back home at that point. Once we looked, because we couldn't do anything once power went out. Then the field office, I mean, it'd be nice, but you know, again, I think we were able to manage. There's nothing, I mean, it's more communication than anything at that point, you know? So we were able to make do pretty well.
I know it's not part of this agenda, but it might be something we need to look at. It's for the field office and here.
So there's no battery backup for the coffee machine.
All right, do I have a motion to approve item 11? And I guess we vote at the trustees meeting, so and authorize the trustee to vote yes.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Spring Creek Detention Study. Any updates?
No updates.
All right. Attorney's report?
Nothing under the attorney's report. I did visit with Eric. I think we'll go into closed session next month, instead of this month, follow-up discussion.
All right. Nothing else?
No,
All right. Item 14, discuss the One Water Task Force.
I don't have any update this month. We didn't meet, this month, and, I'll be looking to hopefully meet in the next few weeks and, see where we're at.
Does everybody understand what the One Water Task Force is?
I don't.
Okay.
That's the one water.
Can you get the bio that you put out on the One Water Task Force, exactly what we're trying to do and so forth? It's, there used to be a, I guess it was called One Water Task Force at one time that the township had, after flooding. And,
Drainage task force.
yes.
Then it morphed into that one.
And then, you know, we looked at, it's a regional thing. So, you know, how do we look at flooding? How do we look at, water usage? You know, how do we make sure we're looking at the future?
So do we assist one another? Is that the way, what this is all about? Or, I mean, with water flow, or, I mean, what's,
The idea was to get all of the stakeholders in the region, and that could be Harris County, Montgomery County.
it's even the township board.
I'm sorry.
It's even the township board.
The township is involved as well, yes. Back in the first look at this a few years ago, and it kind of disbanded in the last few years. You had 20, 30 people apparently in the room from many different municipalities in this region, just to look at the regional solutions to, in that case, drainage. Recognizing that a lot of these watersheds span multiple counties, multiple jurisdictions, things like that. So the goal was, I think before, was to try to get, you know, all those stakeholders in the room to try to work together to find some solutions to some of the drainage issues that have. Flooding.
Okay, it was rains before. What was the solution you were going for? The stakeholders. I'm not making sense. Okay, let me just read
To
it.
look for regional solutions to the flooding issues that were related to Memorial Day, Tax Day, Harvey. That's what it came out of originally.
Okay, thank you.
There's something there that you can,
Coming out of it, there were a couple analysis that were initiated. One of them was the one on your agenda today, the Spring Creek. That is a multi-county project that would span from all the way from Waller County, all the way to Harris County, into Humboldt and Lake Houston. And then the other one was Bear Panther Branch Detention Project. That's what it's called. That's in study right now. Well,
Eric, I'm guessing that with the numbers of stakeholders involved, not all players that would be interested could be in the room at the same time. Like we wouldn't be sending 5. So, and there are 5 MUDs that are involved. So will it be televised or anything like that we could be observing it?
5 months involved. What are you talking about?
With,
Spring Creek.
I'm thinking Spring Creek.
Oh, yeah, that's not, One Water's not really specifically.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
The latest, so One Water, we recreated through support of the township last year. We started meeting earlier this year, really to identify what it might be that One Water or an organized group could accomplish. And so we met a couple times this year to really go through goals. One of the complaints from the first version of this was you had 30 people in the room, half of them weren't engaged in that specific issue, and it kind of just, it died with no real big action. And so what I was real focused on, as folks are wanting to get this back up and running, is it needs to be a unified goals to identify a problem and go towards that and work towards that problem, instead of just coming to the meetings and brainstorming things and never really getting anything done. So my intention is to pull people in as the specific task is identified, pull the right people in at the right time, instead of having a meeting with a bunch of people in it talking about what we'd like to do someday.
This is purely cooperative though, right? It's got no authority behind it. You
Correct.
can't enforce anything.
Correct.
On a particular district or
No.
whatever.
So it's a think tank.
I don't want it to be. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I think I hadn't heard that term used towards it, but it's probably a good, from what I understand, again, I wasn't there, but from what I understand, that's kind of what it became.
Yeah,
Its coordination was my recollection, was back after Harvey, there were concerns about, what happened down in Grogan's Point, and the lower areas, Hot Oaks area, and trying to figure out, okay, well, is there something the MUDs can do? And so LJA went and prepared a model that showed how the water backed up, and it showed that this was a regional issue. There was nothing that we could have done nibbling around the edges, as I call it, improving ponds, desilting channels, that would have fixed that event. It would have taken a regional solution to Spring Creek. And so then the question became, okay, this is outside the Woodlands flood purview. This is really outside the township's purview. We don't have a flood control district in Montgomery County like we have in Harris County. So instead of everybody pointing like this, let's try to get everybody in a room and start a discussion about, okay, what kind of solution could we come up with that would involve the county, potentially the river authority, as they have responsibility in some of the watersheds, potential participation by smaller stakeholders, whether it's the MUD, the township, and try to have some level of coordination. This is my recollection, just have some level of coordination. And that's where it started. I think it spun off this Spring Creek detention study that was spearheaded by the river authority. I think somewhere along the way, subsidence kind of got into the mix about potential flooding that resulted from subsidence. And so there was a bit of mission creep, and that there were a lot of people in the room, and it just kind of fizzled out. But that was my recollection of the genesis of it, where it originally came from. But now I think it sounds like Eric's hope is to be able to focus the group on maybe 1 or 2 discrete projects, whether it's the research forest, drainage project, that, the cost estimate came in really high. Maybe there could be some coordination among these groups to go and chase some funds, or maybe coordinate some cost shares and have a little bit more discrete, project tasks, as opposed to kind of larger questions. But that's my recollection of where it came from.
Is
We have no budget and we have no funding, and it's all volunteers.
there's not some sort of state agency that oversees any of this type of interregional.
No, it didn't.
That was part of the reason to put the group together, was because it was a hodgepodge of different entities that had different, smaller pieces of authority.
Yeah, there's been some small discussions about funding a consultant to work with the task force. Because, well, first of all, we haven't identified any projects that require more than volunteer effort. And another thing we're looking into is it's my pet project, is to create a regional flood control district. And I've had preliminary discussions with the Harris County Flood Control District, and they are receptive to talking to us. We had those conversations years ago on the original task force with Alan Black, who was the number 2 guy. We had several meetings, and they were very enthusiastic, but it was shot down by the township. The township just killed it, since at that time, it was under the direction of the township. And I'm not sure who's in charge of the One Water Task Force. I think it's still, well, I know Cindy and Steve, Todd Stevens are from the township working with us on the One Water Task Force. But Eric has been taking more or less de facto charge. But Cindy is she has been very supportive of us. And so I'm happy because the previous head of the One Water Task Force was totally disinterested in it. And I think that's part of the reason why it failed. And there's many times we would see him with his eyes closed during the One Water Task Force meeting.
One of the things that we've asked to put on the agenda for the trustees meeting next month is the One Water Task Force funding and leadership also. So we're going to bring it up in the trustees meeting, see how we can move it forward with funding. Anything else on that item? Okay, moving on to the general manager's report.
All right, couple items. Did want to talk a little bit, we kind of talked about the storm already, wanted to, I was going to talk a little bit more about it. Like I said, we were, once we lost power on Monday, we kind of went out on our way to our homes, and we're communicating via whatever source we could at that point over the next couple of days. Kind of put a process in place for whether to open or not once we identified that we did or didn't have power. Once we identified we had power early Wednesday morning, we opened the office back up. We were closed on Tuesday with no power. We were able to, on our own, communicate through cell phones and email and texts. Was kind of the way we did it. Most of our calls were to turn water off because there was a water leak at the residence. So whether a tree hit a house and the water line got broke inside the house, or whether a tree fell and the roots uprooted the line and broke it, those were the more common things that we were addressing in the field. But as we reported, no interruption to service. There were rumors about boil water notice. I don't know where that came from. Myself and John was on vacation at the time, stuck in Seattle, trying to get back. And so he and his hotel room and I were working through a public notice that we ended up putting out, I think Wednesday morning, I want to say. So just to let the residents know that the water's safe and it was uninterrupted. So that went out, and then since then, I think it's hit all of our social media outlets as well, or different ones, our usual ones. So I think that was timely because, again, we were starting to get calls. Communicating with the township, they were getting similar calls. Is the water safe? Which it always was. So we put that notice out.
Before you go on there, if the office was closed, what happened if a resident called the officer? Did it route to some other location?
No, well, we are able to take the calls. Our staff, we have some software here that allows those calls to go through on our computers and on our phones. And so our customer service ladies were still able to take those calls and route them to our field staff.
Even with power down, you're able to do that.
Well, not here, at their houses.
And what happens if their house powers down?
Well, I think it was, but we were still able to use cell service. That's what I did at home was when Wi-Fi went down, I switched to cell service and was able to still communicate. Yeah. We were doing what we had to continue to be able to respond to the community. And we did.
Well done.
Wanted to update that the next month we'll have a discussion on budget and tax recommendations, and the budget will initiate that discussion next month. I did want to let everyone know that as of next month, Mike is retiring. And his last meeting will be, this will be his last round of meetings this month. He'll be retiring as of August 1. So I'm looking for a replacement as we speak. And Mike does a lot around here. And so it's going to be a pretty big loss for me, certainly to get someone up to speed. I want to try to help have him work with me on a part-time basis to get the new person up to speed once we identify them. So bear with us, but we'll keep rolling.
Yeah, big shoes to fill.
Yep, absolutely. And with that, kick it over to John for the communications.
Morning. Everyone grab a supplemental. Okay. All right. Hopefully you saw the water quality reports go out in various forms. So it's mailed out, but then we follow that up with emails and posting online and social media and so forth. We really want to make hay of that. It's an important piece for us. You'll see that I put some research there by AWA on just what a significant impact it is for folks when they hear from their water utility, how that correlates to trust in their water quality, whether we're communicating about water quality or not. The more they hear from us, the higher the trust level goes up, basically. So we try to pump out a lot of communication on that. And then I put in some stats there from the last 2 community surveys showing that our satisfaction with our water quality is significantly higher than the national average. It did grow from 22 to 23, and we'll try to keep growing that satisfaction level. Eric spoke to Hurricane Beryl. Next 2 pages, some example of current marketing materials that are out. We did have a nice piece on infrastructure renewal of the Woodlands Community Magazine. That's a big piece for us because that goes to all 42,000 homes and is digital as well on the township website. So check that out if you haven't already. And then more marketing materials for the month, and no real significant update on our infrastructure renewal communications campaign with Holloway. We're still reviewing draft materials with them at this time. Any questions?
Any comments? I've got 2. One is, I want to thank you and Eric for putting that boil water notice out. That was very timely, and I think it hopefully answered a lot of questions and eased a lot of people out there. Secondly, just to give you some kudos. I was at a 4th of July picnic party deal, and people were, the conversation came up and people started complaining about droughts and freezes and replacing plants and trees and everything else. And one person popped up and said, "Hey, you ought to go on this Woodlands Water website. They've got a list of trees and shrubs and everything else that, drought tolerant." And I'm sitting there, I didn't say anything. Go, "Man, pretty good." Somebody's out there reading, but I thought that was pretty good.
Get a rebate form.
Yeah. No, I thought that was pretty good that, people are reading the material that you guys put out. I think it's very useful for the community. Thank you for that. Anybody have anything?
Thank
Okay. Moving on, item 16, trustees report. I think you can pretty well, go on page 44 and read what happened. Probably the biggest thing is that, the trustees authorized SJRA to proceed with an additional feasibility study for the, wastewater treatment plant. And so that'll be, proceeding. And, I think everything else you can probably read in there, what's transpired. Anybody, any questions on that?
The repair in place aspect, it said to bring it up to 50 years. What do you do if you've got a structure that's still got 25 years of remaining life? Do you just throw it away, or do we? No.
No, so one of the things that y'all probably didn't hear in the earlier meetings last month, when Ed presented the options, there was a MBR and conventional on new land, and then replace in place in place. Those were kind of the three main options. As the meetings went along last month, this idea of repair in place continued to be brought up. So by the time probably by Wednesday of the meetings, that was kind of a staple it had changed, right? And so that's what the trustees approved was MBR and conventional on land right next to it, replace in place. And then this fourth option was added, which was to repair in place. What I've asked them to do is to do a repair in place for 25 years, which was what the request was, but then do a subsequent 25 years on top of that, so that those that want to see the 25 can see that piece. But that fourth item needs to be apples to apples to the other three, because those are all looked at for a useful life of 50 years. So we'll do a 25 back to back to get the 50. That way, the folks that want to see 25 will see that piece, but you'll see the big picture that if you put them all side by side, you'll have apples to apples. So you'll have all the pieces that you want.
Good. Now the MBR study was already done, right? We did an MBR study. What? Are we just using the new engineering firm to compare
Most likely.
the four entities? Are they going to use the same information that the previous engineering firm came up with for the MBR?
They'll be able to use the information that's been built thus far, but they'll have to make their own determination. So I don't think on that particular one, my guess is they're not going to have to start completely over with it, but it'll be their presentation, their analysis. So
Yeah, there were 4 alternatives that were analyzed.
Right.
And then they updated only the MBR. So that's new information, and it was more costly, significantly more costly than was first estimated. But we've never updated the other 3. And I think that's what's.
So the MBR study will be based on new information. And
well, it's basically updating the original study, and not with just the MBR, but with the other 2 or 3 alternatives.
And when we get these studies, are they going to present them to us, or are they going to present them to you guys, and then you guys present it to us, or how do we get the information from them?
Yeah, they'll be presented to some works. Absolutely.
From the engineering firm?
I guess. Yeah, there was the talk about building a decision matrix or decision criteria matrix, which essentially means that, there's a lot of concern that, once now there's folks that are tired of continuing to analyze this as it's been analyzed and analyzed and analyzed. And so there's folks that are concerned that, okay, we go through another process of analyzing again. What's to say that we come to some resolution once these 4 items are, further developed. So the idea was to build a decision matrix to assist the MUDs, which they'll be a part of, building that matrix to assist in making a decision once all the analysis is done. And believe the analysis will be done in about 8 months. And then, there'll be a couple months of just digesting and, analyzing and digesting on the mud side, until there's a decision made on whatever path the mud's will go.
Do we have the land to build on a new site? Is that gonna be in our possession, or is that?
My understanding is,
Sixty-five percent. 65%. It's, sorry, go ahead.
you got all the answers.
Packet currently underway doing the right of entry and the survey to get the land around surrounding the plant.
Yeah, so they started putting an update in your packets each month on their progress towards going for that one. The land that's needed for the two options.
It's on page 32, or 31 and 32.
So do you guys have plans for the land if the other options are preferred?
If the replace in place or repair in place is considered rather than the other ones, you'll need the additional land for staging to do those two options. Because right now it's so congested, we don't have any room for any temporary processes, construction staging, anything else.
That's it.
All right, item 17, do we need to recess in closed session? All right, number 18, reconvene then. Number 19, any items for future agenda?
The flood budget and the tax rate recommendation discussion on next month's agenda as usual, or August.
Anybody want to put anything else on? Before we adjourn, Mike, I want to thank you very much for supporting us over the years. I'm sure Eric's going to try to find someone to replace you. It's going to be very hard to do that, though. You've been a big asset to this
Thank you, I appreciate it.
community and enjoyed working with you. It's been an honor.
Where to go every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.